My name is Misty Trammell, and I'm 30. I live just outside Seattle in a house that holds fog like a secret and keeps my mornings simple. Kettle, notebook, a to-do list no one else needs to see. By 9, I'm at the office, our office, because I co-founded a clean energy company that designs modular solar and micro wind systems for old homes that deserve cheaper bills and better air. We're not flashy, we're solvent, we're real. My family never asked what I actually do. They decided long ago I was handsy with tools, good with wires, the kind of person you call when the thermostat blinks 88 and the breaker hums. I let them keep that story. It cost less than correcting them. For 2 years, I didn't speak to my parents or my sister Jessica. No birthdays, no holidays, not even a "how are you?" Silence can be cruel, but it can also be clean. Then this year, I made the mistake that hopeful daughters make. I thought time softens certainty. I booked the flight for my mom's birthday, cleared my calendar, even asked my boyfriend Evan to keep that weekend open in case I needed a quiet dinner afterward. No pressure, no theatrics. Evan got it. He usually does. I called home. Dad picked up on the second ring. "Hey, it's me," I said, aiming for normal. "I'm coming in a few days early. Need me to pick up anything?" A pause, long enough to hear him choose his words. "Misty, maybe don't come this year." I pressed the phone tighter to my ear, like I could wring a different sentence out of the receiver. "Sorry?" "Jessica's bringing her boyfriend," he said, voice flat with performance. "He's important. Comes from a good family. Presentable. It would be better optics." There it was. The word they never said but always measured me against. Optics. "You're uninviting me because I'd look bad next to Jessica's boyfriend?" I asked. "If you insist on coming," he said, steady as a judge. "Don't call me your father." He hung up. The kettle clicked off. The house went very, very still. I didn't cry, didn't throw the mug. I just stood there with the dull surprise you get when a bruise blooms hours after the hit. The words didn't come from anger. They came from practice, like he'd been holding them in a drawer marked emergency use for years. I sat, opened my laptop, and pulled up the only record of love my parents ever allowed me to give them without complaint. Autopay. Puget Sound Electric, Glenmere Water Authority, Cascadet Internet. Each entry tagged with their address, each payment pulled from my business account, because when the bottom fell out under Dad's work 2 winters ago, Mom called with that soft, urgent voice, "Sweetheart, just for the winter, your dad's too proud to ask." That winter became 24 months of quiet wiring, thousands of dollars they never mentioned unless something didn't go through in time. My cursor hovered over the blue toggles. Cancel autopay, remove payment method, deactivate login access. It felt surgical, like switching off a generator so you could rewire a house the right way. I told myself I wasn't doing it for revenge, not even for justice. I did it because a sentence finally rewrote the story. If showing up with my face is an embarrassment, my money doesn't need a seat at their table either. My phone buzzed on the counter, a text from Cousin Erin, the only one who talks to me like I'm a person, not a wrench. "You coming this weekend?" "No," I typed. "Canceled. Long story." "'Kay, I'll call later," she wrote. "But FY Jess is acting like this is her engagement preview. It's a whole thing. Her guy's very—" She paused. Optics. I almost smiled. Evan once joked that if I wore a shinier blazer and talked about scale loudly enough, my parents might forgive me for owning a company they don't understand. He wasn't being cruel. He was naming it. He also has an ex, Hannah, the type with pearly small talk and parents who monogram cocktail napkins. My family would adore her at first sight. It's not Hannah's fault. It's the way my family calibrates worth. Talk smooth, look polished, smile at the right volume. The next week unfolded the way outages do, one flicker at a time. Mom texted, sweet as frosting. "Hey, honey, internet bill came in late. Can you handle that? Love you." No mention of the call. No apology. Just a request sent through the same piping where my money used to flow. I didn't answer. 3 days later, voicemail from Dad. "Power company called. Payment bounced. What's happening? Call me. Let's handle this like adults. Adults." The words sat in my chest like a weight. I left the phone face down and went back to my spreadsheet. Not for work, for tallying the small, bloodless math of forgotten kindness. Line items that added up to more than $9,800 and exactly 0 thank yous. I highlighted the total, then deleted the column, not erasing the past, just ending its subscription. On Friday, Erin called from her car, speakerphone hissing. "You okay?" "I'm fine," I said, and meant it. "You sure you don't want me to skip?" "You go," I told her. "Eat their cake for me." "Want a forecast?" she asked, half joking. "Sure. Your dad's pretending he knows how breakers work. Your mom bought candles taller than the cake. Jess is staging the table like a magazine. And the boyfriend? He talks like a LinkedIn profile." We both laughed because if you don't laugh, you start telling the truth too loud. That night, the house was a harbor. I cooked something simple, opened a bottle, and watched fog smear the streetlights. Around 6:40, my phone lit up with Erin's text. "Power just cut. Whole place black." Aunt Leslie nearly screamed. I stared at the message a long moment. Then another came. They tried the panel. Nothing. A minute later, Dad on hold with Puget Sound. Rep says, "Payer of record removed themselves." Oh boy. Then, Jess is asking if it's the neighborhood. Her guy says where he lives, they get notifications and have a generator. Translation: this is beneath him. I set the phone down and let the silence breathe. It wasn't triumph. It wasn't vengeance. It was symmetry, the world finally reflecting, in a dark dining room, what my family kept refusing to see in daylight. By 9, Erin had evacuated to her car to charge her phone. Internet's dead too. They're eating in silence. Your dad thinks you did it to make a point. My thumb hovered. I typed, deleted, typed again, then stopped. They didn't need my point. They needed a mirror. At 9:12, Mom tried again. "Misty, sweetheart, there was a little mix-up with the bills. If you could help us get things sorted today. We're so grateful for all you do." Grateful, now that the room looked like honesty. At 9:15, Dad called. Straight to voicemail. "You've made your point. Call me back if you want to talk like an adult." The word again, like a key to a door he kept locking from the wrong side. At 9:28, Jessica finally texted, "I'm sorry if what Dad said upset you. I had nothing to do with it. Things got bad tonight. Can you fix the utility thing so we can move forward? No apology for staying quiet. No ownership. Just fix it." I opened a fresh message. Wrote exactly one line. "You made it clear I embarrass you. So I'll make this easy. You won't have to worry about me showing up or paying your bills ever again. Sent." Outside, the fog swallowed the street like a slow tide. Inside, the house hummed a steady, honest quiet I realized I hadn't felt in years, the kind that doesn't flicker. Erin's updates came like dispatches from a storm I'd finally stepped out of. They're lighting candles. Jess is trying to act calm. Nathan looks ready to bolt. I read that line twice, sipping my wine. Nathan, the golden fiancé in training, was supposed to be the night's centerpiece. Now he was sitting in the dark beside my parents' curated chaos. I pictured the table easily, the charcuterie board melting, the floral centerpiece sweating wax, my mom's smile cracking under the weight of performance. I knew that house, how it swallowed tension whole. I grew up in those walls, trained to keep everything nice, even when the air smelled like resentment. Erin sent another text. "Dad's blaming the breaker. Jess said something about calling a handyman. Aunt Leslie offered to text her neighbor's cousin who knows stuff about lights." I actually laughed out loud. The kind of laugh that felt foreign but earned, because for once, their confusion wasn't my responsibility to fix. Then Erin wrote, "Wait, Dad just said she probably did this on purpose." My smile faltered. Of course he did. Because in my family, accountability always had an escape hatch. They'd rather invent sabotage than face self-inflicted neglect. Another ping. "Power company confirmed it. Account closed by payer. Everyone's quiet now." Jess is whispering to Nathan. He's checking his phone, probably Googling hotels. That image, Jessica trying to hold a perfect dinner together by candlelight, pretending nothing was wrong, hit harder than I expected. She'd learned that from Mom, how to perform normal while the room collapses. I poured another glass, walked to the window, and watched the faint shimmer of the city in the distance. Somewhere between those blinking streetlights and my reflection in the glass, I felt it, the thin, clean edge between guilt and relief. Erin called then, voice low. "They're furious," she said. Why? I asked, knowing the answer. They think you're teaching them a lesson. I'm not, I said softly. Lessons require students. Silence stretched, filled with Erin's quiet breathing. You know, she said finally, it's kind of poetic. The lights going out on the one night they wanted to look their best. Yeah, I murmured. Darkness looks good on them. We both laughed quietly. Then she said, You okay? I'm better than okay, I told her. I'm steady. After we hung up, I opened my laptop, not for work, but to write. I typed one sentence into a blank document. People only notice the light when it's gone. Then I closed it. The next morning, my phone was a crime scene. 8 missed calls, 3 voicemails, 5 texts. Mom first, voice sweet and brittle. Misty, honey, the lights went out during the party. Such bad timing. We didn't realize how much you'd been helping us. We're so grateful, truly. Could you help us get things sorted today? Grateful. That word again. Freshly polished. Strategically deployed. Not sorry. Not wrong. Just grateful. Then Dad, his tone less polite, You've made your point, but if you want to act like an adult, call me back. I almost smiled. My father loved using adult as if it were a club with strict dress codes. Then Jessica. I had nothing to do with what Dad said. Things got bad last night. Nathan thinks our family is a mess. Can you just fix the utility thing so we can move forward? Fix it. Always that phrase. As if I were still their invisible repair woman, the quiet sister with a wrench for a heart. I didn't reply. Instead, I remembered. The Christmas when Jessica came home from college, glowing with some new boyfriend. Dad opened the door wide, hugged her like she was carrying sunlight. I arrived an hour later, carrying gifts for everyone, including the wireless thermostat Dad had asked for. When I handed it to him, he said, You always bring practical things. Then turned back to Jessica and said, You could learn something from her taste. It sounded like praise, but it wasn't. It was a neat little insult disguised as balance. A few months later, when their furnace broke, Dad called, You still do that tech stuff, right? The handy things? I remember crawling through their crawl space for 6 hours, fixing the unit, cutting their bills by 15%. When I finished, Mom offered leftovers and called me our helpful little one. The next day, Jessica's boyfriend came over. She introduced me as the girl who helps with the heater. Not her sister, not an engineer, just help. That memory landed like cold steel. No wonder I'd become invisible. It was efficient for everyone. I glanced at my phone again. The missed calls stared back like reminders of an old habit I'd finally broken. Then Erin texted, late that night. Family group chats melting down. Jess told Nathan it wasn't your fault, but he's weirded out. Dad says you're ungrateful. Mom's crying. So everything's normal, I wrote back. Pretty much. The next morning, I woke to another voicemail from Mom, soft and practiced. Sweetheart, we shouldn't have relied on you so much. Things just slipped. We love you. You know that. But I didn't. Not really. What I knew was dependency disguised as love, conditional, convenient, and always one bill away from disappointment. I deleted the message without saving it. Then I took a slow breath and whispered to no one, Let the darkness stay a while. Maybe they'll finally see what they built. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel invisible. I felt free. For the first time in my life, I didn't rush to make peace. I didn't open my banking app. I didn't call the power company. I just let silence do what my words never could, make them sit with themselves. It's strange how quiet freedom sounds, like breathing after years of shallow air. Every time my phone buzzed, I turned it face down. Every time Mom's name flashed, I reminded myself, you don't owe them clarity for chaos they created. A few days later, Erin sent another update. Dad's ranting about responsibility. Mom's blaming stress. Jessica's crying, but still says she understands both sides. Both sides. The family's favorite phrase for pretending neutrality in cruelty. That week, I couldn't stop thinking about the years of small slights that built to this. The way Mom always introduced Jessica's accomplishments like medals. Jessica's new marketing role, so proud. Then to me, Misty's doing tech things, something green. Or the time I fixed their garage door during a thunderstorm, soaked to the bone. And Dad's only comment was, You should have been an electrician. Would have saved us more money. I didn't realize until now, every favor I ever did for them erased me a little more. 3 nights later, Jessica called. I stared at the screen until it stopped ringing. Then she texted, I don't know what Dad said exactly, but he didn't mean it that way. Nathan's been distant since the party. Can we just talk? I waited a full hour before replying. Talk about what, Jess? The optics or the outage? She left me on scene. Typical. Apologies were only valuable if they could be performed in front of an audience. The next day, Mom sent a long message filled with passive regret. You've always been independent, Misty. Maybe we leaned on you too much. But family should forgive, right? That's what adults do. There it was again, that word. Adults. Their favorite weapon. Forgiveness to them meant pretending it never happened. Reset, resume, repeat. But I wasn't their generator anymore. So I wrote back, short and clean. I forgave you the first 100 times. That's why you never noticed. That night, I pulled up an old folder on my laptop labeled Contracts. It wasn't work. It was my parents' paperwork. Utility setups, auto transfers, account passwords, all the infrastructure of care they'd never seen. As I deleted each file, I realized they never once asked me how I learned to do all this. They didn't know I'd spent nights coding energy simulations while roommates slept, that I'd pitched my first prototype in a garage with duct-taped whiteboards, that I'd gone hungry so I could afford patent fees. They never asked, because their version of me was simpler, a tool, not a person. And maybe that's the real price of invisibility, when people love the function, not the human. The next morning, my company signed a contract with a public school district to retrofit their buildings with solar panels. My partner Evan sent a voice note after the deal closed. You did it again. You never even stopped to celebrate, Misty. I smiled. Celebrating just feels foreign sometimes, I said aloud, even though he wasn't there. He texted back seconds later. You should try it. I'm bringing dinner tonight. No laptops allowed. Evan wasn't the kind of man who needed noise. He was the opposite of my father. Steady, curious, never once trying to correct me. His ex, Hannah, had been all polish and pleasantries, the kind of woman my mother would have invited for brunch before knowing her name. Sometimes I caught myself wondering if my family would have respected me more if I'd been more like her, quieter, shinier, surface perfect. But then I remembered, I've spent my whole life being quiet, and it only ever made me smaller. That weekend, Erin called again. Just checking you're still breathing, she said, half joking. Better than ever, I said. She hesitated. Misty, they still don't get it. Your dad said you've changed. I let out a soft laugh. That's what people say when you stop letting them use you. Are you going to talk to them? She asked. Not yet. I think they need to live without the hum of easy help. Yeah, Erin said quietly. They've been real quiet since the lights came back on. Maybe it's sinking in. I doubted it, but that wasn't my problem anymore. That night, I sat on my porch with a blanket and the smell of rain. For the first time, I didn't replay old arguments in my head. I didn't write imaginary speeches. I just watched the porch light flicker against the mist and thought, I've spent my whole life trying to illuminate people who like the dark. Not anymore. A month passed. The silence stretched, long and unbroken, but this time it didn't ache. It breathed. I poured my focus into work, long hours in the workshop, late-night calls with engineers across states. Our new contracts were rolling in, slow, steady, sustainable. I was doing what I'd built my life to do, make light, not noise. Then, one Friday evening, life decided to test my calm. Evan texted, Dinner at Birch and Rye tonight? My treat. You deserve something that isn't eaten over spreadsheets. I smiled. Birch and Rye was my quiet corner of the city. Dim lighting, wood tables, no influencers posing with wine glasses. It felt safe, unstaged. I texted back, Sure, see you at 7. By 6:55, I was seated with a glass of Cabernet, the hum of low conversation blending with soft jazz. I'd just signed off an email when I heard it, a laugh that froze the blood in my veins. Jessica's laugh. I looked up slowly. There she was, walking through the entrance with my parents. No Nathan in sight this time. Mom wore her pearls. Dad his old sport coat. And Jessica that perfectly curated smile she saved for public view. It was like watching a rerun of a show I'd been written out of. They didn't see me at first. The host led them to a table across the room, close enough that I could hear fragments of conversation. Mom adjusting her napkin, Jessica talking about career transitions, Dad ordering wine from the mid-range list as if generosity had a limit. I turned my focus back to my plate, heartbeat calm but steady. I wasn't going to leave, not again. Then our waiter, a college kid named Caleb, who'd seen me here a dozen times, walked up to their table with his easy smile. "Welcome back. Just so you know, your daughter's already dining with us tonight." I didn't plan it, didn't expect it. Jessica blinked. "Our daughter?" Caleb nodded toward me, cheerful and oblivious. "Yeah, Misty. She comes here often. Helped the owners install solar last year. Saved them thousands on energy." The silence that followed was priceless. Mom's smile froze like porcelain. Dad looked like someone had handed him a live wire. Jessica turned slowly, our eyes locking across the room. I lifted my glass slightly. Not a toast, not a challenge, just acknowledgement. Dad was the first to move. He stood, smoothing his jacket, and walked over with the fake, casual swagger of a man trying to pretend he wasn't humiliated. "Misty," he said, voice low. "Didn't expect to see you here." I set my glass down gently. "I live 6 blocks away. I eat here sometimes." He shifted his weight. "I've been meaning to reach out." I tilted my head. "To apologize?" He blinked. "Well, to discuss everything. That birthday thing, it got out of hand." "It wasn't a thing," I said evenly. "You told me not to call you my daughter." He sighed, the sound of a man trying to rebrand guilt as fatigue. "I said that in frustration." "You meant it," I replied quietly. The restaurant hum faded behind us. For a moment, it was just the two of us standing in the middle of polished wood and candlelight, old words rustling like ghosts. "You know what's strange, Dad?" I said. "If you'd ever just asked what I do, you might have known how I paid those bills." He frowned. "Jessica said you work with tech? Something mechanical?" I almost laughed. "I co-founded Verdant Systems. We handle renewable infrastructure. We retrofit schools and government buildings. That's something mechanical, I guess." His face strained. "You never told us that." "You never asked," I said. I stood, placed a few bills on my table, and looked him in the eye. "Dinner's covered," I said softly. "That's the last thing I'll ever pay for on your behalf." For once, he didn't argue, didn't command. He just stared, lost between pride and shame. I walked past their table. Mom's pageant smile trembled, but stayed plastered. Jessica's expression, part guilt, part embarrassment, followed me until the door. She didn't speak, didn't have to. The silence between us was enough to light the room. Outside, the air was cool, soft with fog. Evan was waiting by the car, leaning against the hood, hands in his pockets. "Hey," he said gently. "You okay?" I nodded. "Better than I expected." He studied my face for a beat, then smiled. "Good, because I brought dessert to go. Let's get out of here before this turns into a movie scene." We drove home in quiet comfort, headlights cutting through mist like certainty. That night, after he fell asleep, I stood by the window again. Across the city, thousands of lights blinked in unison, each one paid for by someone who knew their worth. And I realized something simple but enormous. I didn't need my family to see me anymore. The right people already did. It's funny how peace doesn't come with fireworks. It comes quietly, like the hum of a fridge after a power outage, or the click of a light you forgot still worked. After that night at Birch and Rye, I didn't hear from them for weeks. Not a word from Dad, no text from Mom, no half-hearted check-ins from Jessica. The silence that used to sting now felt like space. Clean, breathable space. I kept working. Our company, Verdant Systems, landed a major state contract for rural solar expansion. Evan celebrated by surprising me with a weekend trip north, where the stars actually looked like light, not static. He toasted to quiet victories. I toasted to earned peace. When we got back, my phone held a few new messages. One from Mom. "Saw an article about solar grants. Made me think of you. So proud, sweetheart. Hope you're doing well." One from Dad. "Upgraded the house. Got new insulation and a programmable thermostat. Bet you'd approve." And from Jessica, finally, "Nathan and I broke up. He said our family was too complicated. Maybe he was right. Anyway, I hope you're okay." Not one mention of that birthday. Not a word about the restaurant. Just surface-level small talk, as if rewriting the past could be done by pretending it never happened. I didn't reply, not out of spite, out of completion. There's a difference. I started spending more time on my balcony. From up here, the city was a field of scattered constellations, thousands of small lights, all powered by unseen connections. It reminded me of the very thing I used to fix for others. When I was a kid, Dad once told me that light was a luxury, not a right. Maybe that's why he never understood me, because I always saw it as something everyone deserved, if they were willing to work for it. Now, standing there with a mug of tea, I realized I'd been the light in that family for years, and they'd used it without ever asking where it came from. When I finally switched it off, it wasn't to punish them. It was to remind myself that I existed outside of their shadows. Evan came out to join me, wrapping a blanket over my shoulders. "You're quiet," he said softly. "I'm thinking," I replied. "About them?" I smiled faintly. "About me, actually." He nodded, patient. That's the thing about him. He doesn't rush my silences. After a while, I said, "I used to think forgiveness meant going back. Now I think it just means not carrying it anymore." He squeezed my hand. "That's progress, Misty. The real kind." We stayed there a long time, watching the fog slide through the city like a living thing. Weeks later, Erin called. "You know," she said, "they're still trying to figure out why you haven't reached out." I laughed softly. "They'll call it pride, won't they?" "Probably," she said, "but I think it's power." Power. The word fit better than forgiveness ever did. I haven't seen my family since that night. No dramatic confrontations, no revenge arcs, just distance, the clean kind. Sometimes people assume peace is the opposite of pain. It's not. It's the stillness that comes after you stop chasing closure from those who profit from your confusion. Now my life feels quieter, but it's the kind of quiet that hums with strength. I wake up early, open the blinds, and let real light fill my space. Not the flickering kind powered by obligation, but the kind I built myself. Every once in a while, I still get texts from Mom, links to articles about renewable energy, maybe a thinking of you. I never delete them, but I never answer either. Some messages aren't meant to be returned. Because some people only clap for you when it benefits them, and some lessons are best left in the dark. So I turn on my lamp, open my notebook, and start sketching a new design, a smaller solar model for low-income homes. Because if my family taught me anything, it's this. When people can't appreciate your light, you build it for someone who can. I take a sip of tea, glance out the window, and smile to myself. They wanted me dim, but I learned to shine alone. And that's enough.